My name is Eric Nakagawa. I'm here with Johann Eid from Chainlink. And what we want to do is kind of talk about what Chainlink is. And maybe we can start off with your role and what Chainlink is, and kind of dig deeper into some of the things that you folks are working on.
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you for having me. It's a great event, and it's great to see such a crowd. So about my role, I've been at Chainlink for around 4.5 years now. So it's been a little while, and I've really worked on ecosystem building. So right now I work with, I lead the ecosystem team over at Chainlink, and our role is very much focused on adoption. Chainlink and the whole concept around Chainlink is how can we get the tooling for developers to actually build the future on chain, right? So right now as a developer, and a few years ago when you got into the space, there was no way to get data. There was no way to automate your smart contracts. A lot of key building pieces weren't there. So our core mission at Chainlink since the very beginning has been how can we provide the tools that developers don't have today on chain so that they can actually build stuff that matters, build stuff that can change the world, have an impact. To me, that's what DeFi is, right? So when we started providing the tools for DeFi to exist, price data, automation, cross-chain now, we started giving out pieces that could enable a next kind of generation of contracts to take shape. And this next generation had the ability to recreate the way people actually use finance, the way finance actually works. And I think that's a huge undertaking, which we've been working on for many years now. Yeah.
Got it. Well, thanks for the overview. And one of the things I like about Chainlink is it is very high in demand. A lot of developers want it, and I think the focus that you have on enabling developers through tools to build whatever the future needs to be, I think has been great. And I think we've been talking with Chainlink and trying to involve Chainlink in our community, the Celo community, for quite a long time. And finally, that's happened. And that's actually happened through the program called Chainlink Scale. And I'd love to talk for you to kind of share more about what that program is, and then we can dive deeper into the benefits that provides to the Celo developers, but the wider Web3 developer community.
Yeah, of course. So one of our goals has always been adoption, and adoption in this space has to come through security. So one of the things you'll notice about Chainlink is that for the last 4 years, we've had a track record of working, which is not the case for if you go too quick in this space, right? So if you go too quickly, if you actually miss steps, you will have low security. And low security in this space means value lost for day-to-day people. And when day-to-day people actually lose money, you delay adoption by multiple years, right? So our whole long-term goal has been creating security for adoption to exist, right? Now, Chainlink Scale is a program that allows us to work with chains like Celo in order to put and to create a data-rich environment in an extremely secure manner. So in order to put data on a chain, right, so whenever we create price feeds, and maybe after I can go into what price feeds are, you have to pay, as a node operator network, gas, right? So it's costly to put data on chain because you have to constantly spend gas for node operators. Now, what Celo and a few ecosystems are doing is, in order to bootstrap, in partnership with us, a DeFi ecosystem, we work on taking care of these gas costs, right? So Celo is helping subsidize the gas that powers critical infrastructure on Celo. And this critical infrastructure could be a Celo USD price feed, it could be a BTC, ETH USD. It's any type of critical data points that developers need to create DeFi dApps. And here the assumption is that as you lower the barrier of adoption for developers, now it's much easier because I have a data-rich environment to create DeFi applications on top of Celo. So that's really the goal, powering and bootstrapping DeFi ecosystems through this program.
Yeah, one thing that I think when people are starting out and learning how to build, Solidity or the Web3 dApp is they want live data, right? They want real world data, something that they can relate to, especially for demonstrations and things like that. So I think I'm with you that exposing that to the community is great, and we're excited to be a part of the Scale program. So thank you for kind of talking about that. Maybe you were kind of talking on price feeds. What other or types of tools does Chainlink being, supporting Celo provide to developers? What kind of things would you like to kind of share? Maybe let people learn about it, or they can kind of follow up about it after. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe I can detail what a price feed is. So in order to get data on chain, you have two different models, two different philosophies, right? You have either a pool model, you could call it, right? And the pool model is, as a DeFi application, I need a price now, right? Right now, there is a trade that's going to happen. I need the price of any type of asset, right? And then there is a push model, which is basically what price feeds do. So the push model is, I have a DeFi app that does, let's say, lending. And if I'm doing lending, I need to reprice the collateral that's actually backing my DeFi protocol constantly, right? I need to keep repricing the value of my collateral in order to know if the loans that are being taken are fully covered by the collateral that's currently on chain, okay? And that's a push model. So the push model basically updates the on-chain data for any type of data point. So, it could be the ETH price, the BTC price, etc., constantly. And when I say constantly, I mean every time the price moves by 1%, 2% of chain. So it could be, this parameter is usually defined by the dApp developer. So when you have a push model, it actually makes it extremely easy for developers to access data points. You don't require pulling the data anymore through your dApp. You don't need to know, okay, I need to pull the data at this exact point in time. You can rely on price feeds, which are being updated, not in real time, because real time doesn't exist in the blockchain world. You always have these limits. But on the price feeds that will follow the price of the collateral for lending dApps, for instance, at a rate that you can trust. And that's extremely important. That's the key building block on which protocols like Aave, like Compound are powered. It's basically, I need to price the value of my collateral constantly. If I can't price it, then I have a big issue. So that's what the push model allows you with price feeds. There are other tools we provide. We provide automation to be able to automate smart contracts, right? So many smart contracts need some trigger to basically execute automatically, right? And I think right now our industry is quite inefficient because you don't have many ways to automate smart contracts. With Chainlink automation, what we're doing is we're enabling people to actually automate tasks that need to happen at specific points. So I have a trigger. This trigger needs to execute a transaction. I can cut this up with Chainlink automation. And that's critical. Let's say you want to have limit orders on AMMs. That's what an automation tooling can give you. So automation, and we had a front end released for, so there is a front end with Uniswap v3 right now that's going to use automation for limit orders. And what this allows you is, I want to pass a trade. When the value of an asset reaches X, then when it reaches X, the CLA, the Chainlink automation, will automatically trigger the trade. And this, I think, we will see more and more transactions being automated through this type of system, right? Got it.
Yeah, so I know you mentioned price feeds and the automated pieces. And I know that there's a bunch of other features that you folks have. And one of them I heard is like VRF, like the randomization. I think that's another thing that a lot of people who are trying to provably do work that is random, I think is useful, can be useful for gaming, can be useful for a lot of other things. But it's good to hear those two features for people that are building some sort of DeFi protocol. And one other thing, kind of like going back to the Scale piece or the Scale program, is the price feed or whatever information is not coming from you, right? It's coming from this network of people on chain that are aggregating their feed, right? And I think the Scale program helps in some ways to make that come to be, correct?
Yeah, that's a very important point. So Chainlink itself is a decentralized Oracle network, meaning all the nodes, all the oracles are independent nodes. Many of those nodes are actually validators on Celo, right? So we do share many nodes in this regard. And whenever you have an independent set of validators, you need to have, or node operators in our case, you need to have the right incentives, right? You need to ensure that these node operators are being compensated. And actually, that's what the Scale program helps. It does set up the right incentive system through the blockchain participating for node operators, for Chainlink node operators, to constantly have an incentive to push data on chain. And any decentralized system that is worth calling a decentralized system needs to have an incentive system like that makes sense. Otherwise, if you don't have incentives, it does not work, right?
I mean, that's why you're able to have, and that's why I think a lot of developers ask for Chainlink, is because the information is up to date, accurate, and you said, there's an incentive to do it, right? Rather than having something that's maybe the data's stale, and I think that liveness bit is really important. I know you folks you're also at ETC, and I think there's a lot of great new information coming out. I was curious from your perspective, are there any new areas you're interested in? Can be related to Chainlink, can be related to data feeds. Any new things that you're seeing a trend or something you can share with the group here that is catching your attention?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are two things which are obviously related to Chainlink, but that's a good part of working in crypto and DeFi. Usually your passions do align with what you do on a day-to-day basis, right? So I'm passionate by it and I get the chance to work on it, right? The two things I've noticed is, one, we haven't seen derivatives as a whole really pop up before recently, right? So derivatives are an extremely piece of finance today, right? If you look at the TradFi world we have today, most of the value is actually in derivative contracts, right? And I think the main issue with derivatives up to now was latency. There was no chain that was fast enough to accommodate derivatives, right? And now we have Celo, we have other chains that actually accommodate what these derivative protocols need to be able to run and to be able to function, right?
Do you mean like the blockchain? Block
the
time?
block
I see, okay.
And very importantly, the gas cost. If the gas costs are super expensive, you're not able to put a lot of stuff on chain. You're not able to do many things on chain, right? So by lowering the gas cost, then you open up opportunities for new industries. And I think derivatives will follow the TradFi example. They will be the place where a lot of the value in our crypto ecosystem actually sits. So that's something I'm extremely excited about. Unlike the push model, derivatives can use the pool oracle model I was referring to, and that's our release we're working on. So we had an announcement with GMX a few weeks ago, where through the low latency oracles, you can actually start powering in a decentralized way. So through the same oracle networks we use for the push model, extremely fast and low latency use cases like GMX. And this is, in my view, going to open up a ton of doors for the industry. Now, a second thing, which I think has been on everyone's mind recently, has been cross-chain. I was actually pretty interested in cross-chain already 5 years ago, like a long time ago, because at the time it was already pretty obvious that not everything was going to sit on the same chain, right? It was going to be very, very hard to fit all of the world's data and logic into one single ecosystem. And for the longest time, and I think we're still there in some way, most of the smart contracts are living siloed from each other. So if you're on one ecosystem where you have, different smart contracts, like let's say Uniswap and Aave, these two can interact with each other, right? But if you want to interact with another chain where you have other smart contracts that still not something that's happening often right now, right? And in my view, we're still in the intranet phase of this space. And we need to take it to the phase where we break down all of these silos and we start actually bridging ecosystems together to create an internet of smart contracts, right? So a smart contract on Celo interacts with a smart contract on Avalanche to trigger a smart contract on Arbitrum. That's kind of the unified state of this space, because I think that as you bridge ecosystems, you create and you amplify network effects, right? So every time I bridge one system to another, I create value. I amplify the network effect. And for the space to actually really go into the next phase of its evolution and to attract outside players, like let's say an institution, these institutions are not going to look into 2,000 different chains and try to figure out which one is best, right? They'll want a way to interact with each other. And that's good for the whole ecosystem, because if they have the flexibility to issue, let's say, real-world assets on Celo, and then to see, oh, this other bank issued real-world assets on another chain, if you have a way to bridge these assets together, then this hurdle, this silo goes away. So in my view, cross-chain will be very important to not only connect the space, but also enable outside players to get into our ecosystem, which is what we want. That's where most of the value sits, after all. And bringing security here is very important, because if institutions start using us and they have security issues and value gets lost or whatever, like unfortunately that's pretty common in DeFi, then that delays adoption. So that's why I'm excited about CCIP for cross-chain, and of course I'm extremely interested in latency, data 2.0, low latency oracles, because I think the future is going to be very based on derivatives.
Got it. So thanks for sharing those two kind of insights. I think also what I heard really was, if you can bridge together a lot of projects, then the people they can assume that everything's interconnected, and people that are building things are going to be competing with other projects, so that they're providing the best experience. In many cases, it might be a price if they're finance, or if it's a user experience thing. It could be much easier to, rather than know that I got to move this here and I got to move that there, if all those can interact, I could see a much easier user experience for a lot of people. Like with Celo, we're trying to bring on a lot of real people around the world, right? And if you have to explain 20 steps to even interact with the thing, it's too much, right? So it's not just the big folks, it's the normal people, the people that are just getting into the space, and we spend a lot of our time trying to empower them to kind of be a part of this experience. So I appreciate you sharing that. I guess what's next, right? So we've learned about Chainlink scale. We've learned about, I know you kind of touched a little bit about one of the announcements you folks made. What can I do to learn more? And how would you like to challenge this group here now that Chainlink is a part of Celo and Celo is a part of Chainlink community? What can we do next?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have Sergey speaking at ECC, 20th of July. So I recommend everyone to go there. We'll be discussing very exciting projects and everything that's going on with Chainlink. We have our website, I invite you to go to, our docs page if you want to discover more about CCIP. We also have our ETH Global hackathon. So we'll be participating at the ETH Global kind of hackathon, I think on the 21st of July. So those are all events, I invite everyone to go, learn about Chainlink, maybe start using our products if you're a developer, or read up on what we do on a day-to-day. We had a very exciting announcement recently with Swift, which is also part of what we're trying to do as far as connecting the TradFi world to the crypto world, right? That's a big mission of ours. So if you guys want to check it out, that really highlights the vision we have. So regarding what I invite people to do on Celo, I think now you have a really good opportunity to start building with a low barrier of entry. DeFi protocols that can leverage price feeds to actually get the value of collateral, to create derivatives, to create option markets. right? So I do really encourage people to go over there, start using our data. I think our price feeds are already live on Celo, right? So that's really an opportunity to start experimenting there. And I think you guys have been around for a long time now, and you've done a lot of great stuff for the space. So I think it's good to have these two building blocks now connected, so that developers can have some really good tooling to build cool use cases, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to emphasize that I know you folks are going to be at ETH Global. We will be there too, and we talked with Solange, who's one of your dev advocates, did a great job demonstrating, and we shared all that information on social media. So folks that want to get started can get started, and if they're at or participating in a hackathon, come find me, and I'll be happy to point you to the right people. I think the things that you talked about, the features around data feeds, makes a lot of sense for people that have been building on Celo for a long time, and where these things are going, I think it's up to the community to make it happen, right? You're a decentralized Oracle network, but people have to be building to make those things become reality. So I appreciate you kind of talking about those things and kind of going through what you think, where you think things are headed. And what I remember was derivative type projects maybe becoming a thing now because the technology is finally here and the networks are cheaper, faster, et cetera. And I guess appreciate the time. And with that, happy to wrap up. And thank you so much for Johann for coming, and thank you everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I'll be around if anyone has questions and wants to talk. And thank you so much for hosting me. All right, thank you guys.